Tell the jury your name.
Robin Howington.
And you are the Robin Howington we've been talking about since Monday, right?
Yes, sir.
And how old a woman are you?
41.
Okay. And where were you born?
Bristol, Tennessee.
How long did you live in Bristol?
Till I was 14.
Scoot that up just a little bit more.
Pull it right up there to you.
Pull it up closer to you. There you go.
Okay, let's try that. So you lived in Bristol till you were 14.
Yes, sir.
And where did you move then?
Knoxville.
And have you lived in Knoxville since?
Yes, sir.
And do you have family here?
My son, Gavin.
Okay. Now, your mother lived in Bristol, right?
Yes.
And for a time she lived with you here.
Yes.
And she passed during this pendency of this case.
Yes.
Okay. Where, back in September of 2019, where were you living?
502 Balsam Drive.
Okay. And how long had you been there?
For about 4 years.
And who did you live with?
Destiny, Gavin, and myself.
Okay. And just to be clear, did Antoine Oliver ever live at that address?
No, sir.
Did he ever spend the night at that address?
No, sir.
Was he ever there when you alone that you know of?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you a minute about your kids. Back in September of 2019, how many children did you have?
3.
And tell us their names.
Jeremiah, Destiny, and Gavin.
And how old were they back in September 2019?
16, 5, and 2.
Okay.
Did you say your oldest child's in Jeremiah? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
And how long did Jeremiah live with you?
Till he was 12.
And then who did he go live with?
His father.
And do you have contact with him today?
Yes, sir.
And where is he living?
Norfolk, Virginia.
Why is he living in Norfolk, Virginia?
He's in the Navy.
I think you told me the other day he was entering into a special program.
Yes.
What was that?
The SEALs.
Didn't make you real happy, did it?
No.
No. Let's talk for a minute about Destiny. Who is her dad?
Antoine.
Okay. And how long were the two of you together?
Approximately 3 years.
Okay. And was it good in the beginning?
Yes.
Did you have plans?
Yes.
And what were your plans with Antoine?
To raise Destiny and be a family.
And were you able to do that?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because when I got pregnant, he started to become very controlling and abusive, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
And how did that affect you?
It was very traumatizing.
And did that have any effect on your friends and family?
Yes.
What was that?
Your Honor, can we approach really quick?
So as a result of that deteriorating relationship, did your friends quit coming around?
Yes.
And did that kind of leave you isolated?
Yes.
I want to talk to you now. Judge, I guess we need to approach again. Sorry. I guess we need to approach. Okay, Robin, I want to talk to you a little bit about Thursday, the 12th of September, 2019. Did something happen on that day?
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened?
Antoine was supposed to pick Destiny up from school, and he did. Instead of keeping her till around 7, he came to my house instead and started acting irate because I had a new boyfriend that he didn't know anything about.
And how soon was this after he picked up Destiny from the school?
Not very long.
And so he was coming and dropping her off. Is that what happened?
Yes.
And did he and Callie get into a little argument out front?
Yes.
And as a result of that, did you ask him to leave?
Multiple times.
And did he leave?
No, sir.
As a result of that, his not leaving, what did you do?
I went into my house and got the gun and brought it outside and asked him to leave.
And what did he do in response to that?
He took the gun from me and he took it apart
And what did he do with it?
and threw it on the ground.
And what did he do after that?
He went to his car and attempted to back up and hit me.
And then he left.
Correct.
And what happened to the gun on the ground?
Callie picked it up.
Let me stop you there. Callie is,
My boyfriend at the time,
and his name is?
Daniel Hensley.
Okay. And he picked it up.
Yes, sir.
And what did he do with the pieces?
He put it back together.
If he hadn't been there, would you have been able to put the gun back together?
No, sir.
So after Antoine left and Callie picked the gun up, what did the two of you do?
We went inside where the kids were.
And who had the gun at that time?
He did.
Did you ask him to do anything with it?
I told him to put it up because I had to tend to my kids.
And had you ever told Callie where you kept that gun?
No,
And where did that gun come from?
Callie,
Why did he give you a gun?
because of the abuse from Antoine and from the rape.
And what was it that caused him to want to give you that gun?
Because I was scared and having nightmares.
And how long did you get that gun before this incident happened?
Just a couple months.
And once he gave it to you, did you do anything with it when he gave it to you?
No,
And where did you put it?
in my closet in a black bag.
And in that couple of months that you had that gun, before September 19th, or say on September 19th of 2019, did you touch that gun again after you put it in the closet?
No, sir.
Did you go check on it regularly?
No, sir.
Had you ever fired the gun?
No, sir.
And on September 17th of 2019, when you were speaking with Wardlaw, and he told you several times that Gavin could not have reached that closet shelf, right?
Yes.
And you told him that he had gotten to the closet shelf because he would sometimes put on your high heels.
Yes.
Okay. So when he told you no, that wasn't true, do you recall what your response to him was?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
I told him that I assumed that Gavin had either moved a stool or the gun was not where I kept.
Take a second there. I want to make sure the jury hears either Gavin moved the stool or what?
The gun was not where I kept it.
You told the police, you told Riddle at the house, and then you told both of them in the interview room that you suffer from PTSD.
Yes, sir.
And is that true?
Yes, sir.
And are you being treated for that?
Yes, sir.
And when did you get this diagnosis of PTSD?
After I was raped.
And are you receiving counseling?
Yes, sir.
And I think we all know at this point that you have medication for PTSD.
Yes, sir.
On that interview on the 14th of September, probably 3:30, whatever it was, in the morning, as that interview was ending in the KPD building, they went through your purse, right?
Yes, sir.
And you had a lot of bottles of pills in there. And were you prescribed all of those?
Yes, sir.
And were they in their prescription bottles?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but we're going to talk for a minute about the rape. When did this happen?
March of 2018
And where did that happen?
in Kingsport, Tennessee, at a landfill where I was doing community service for failure to appear on a speeding ticket.
And so you didn't show up for court on a speeding ticket, and a judge ordered you to do this community service.
Yes, sir.
You recall how much community service he ordered you to do?
30 days.
And how did you get to this landfill every day to do this community service?
An officer would drive us on a bus.
And what were you doing at the landfill?
We were going through recycled cardboard to make sure there was no trash in it.
And at some point, were you asked to do another job rather than do the cardboard?
Yes.
What was that?
Clean the offices of the people that worked at the landfill because they were sick and not there.
And is that where this sexual assault took place?
Yes, sir.
And the person who did that was the person who drove the bus?
The officer that drove the bus and was supposed to be overseeing us.
And you asked to prosecute that case?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, was that man ever charged with the rape?
I assume so, yes.
You know that he ended up pleading to making a false statement to the police, to the TBI?
No, sir.
Didn't know that. Did the prosecutors up there ever talk to you about that case, resolving it?
Resolving it, they wanted to not prosecute him and just give me money.
And there was eventually a civil lawsuit. It was not a civil lawsuit, it was a civil settlement. Is that
Yes.
correct? And you got paid how much money total?
Like $13,000.
Okay. let's go back for just a moment to the 12th of September of 2019. Where did you get the gun from on that day?
Out of the closet of the black bag.
And where did you put the gun afterwards?
I did not put the gun up. I gave it. Callie picked it up after Antoine took it apart.
And he did what?
I assumed he put it up.
Okay. So, on September the 14th of 2019, did you know where that gun was?
No, sir.
Why did you tell them that it was in the black bag on the shelf in the closet?
Because that's where I kept it.
Now, I'm going to shift to September 14th of 2019. You called 911 at about 8:53, 54 in the evening. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What had you and the kids been doing that day?
We went to Chuck E. Cheese, a friend of mine's, and to the park.
And which park was that?
The park in Carnes.
And the police found that kind of odd that you would drive all the way to Carnes to the park rather than going to Fountain City, which is just a few blocks from your house, right?
Yes.
Well, why did you go all the way to Carnes to the park?
Because it was more modern. The things to play on at Fountain City Park were broken, and I didn't want my kids to get hurt.
So, you remember about what time you went to the park?
Around 7,
It takes how long to get there each way?
about 20 minutes.
And before leaving, had you done anything to start getting prepared for dinner?
Yes, I put a roast and carrots in the crock pot.
And what time did you get home?
About 8:40, 8:45.
And so when you got home from the park, what did you do?
I brought the kids in because they were asleep
Did you bring them in together or separately?
separately.
Okay. And you parked your car and brought the kids in, right?
Yes,
And then later you went back out to move the car.
Your
yes.
Honor, can we just not leave the witness?
When you came home, do you remember where you parked?
Yes, right in front of the sidewalk.
Is that where you normally park?
No,
Why not?
because the mailbox is there, so the mailman can't get to the mailbox.
And that doesn't make the mailman happy, does it?
No,
So, was there a time at which you went back outside to the car?
yes.
What were you doing?
I was smoking because I do not smoke in my house around my kids.
And what else did you do?
I moved my car.
Okay. And you've seen that video from the neighbor's porch, right?
Yes, sir.
If you hadn't seen that video, would you have known any of those times?
No, sir.
And after you get the kids inside, there's a fellow that comes to your door and he's there for 63 seconds or so, right?
Yes.
Do you know who that was?
Yes.
And who was it? Don't tell me. Don't say the last name because it's being broadcast. But if we need to, we can get that from.
His name was Jay.
Excuse me.
Jay.
Jay. And why was he there?
He was getting payment from where he tinted my windows on my car
When did he tint the windows?
the day before
And why didn't you pay him on Friday?
because there was bubbles in the tint and I wanted to know if they were going to go away or not.
And did he come and fix that, or did he just?
No, I didn't pay him as much as he originally asked me to.
So after you got through dealing with Jay, what happened? What did you do?
I made sure the kids was okay, and I went outside to smoke and move my car.
When you came back from moving the car, what did you do?
I was walking up to my house, and it's a glass door, and I seen a flash of light go off. And when I walked in, Gavin was screaming and crying, and the gun was on the ground.
There's some tissues up there in that box. And did you see where Destiny was at that point?
Yes, she was on the couch.
And was she moving at all?
No,
Did you try to speak with her at all?
multiple times.
I'm sorry.
Multiple times.
And did she ever respond to you at that point?
No, sir.
No. What was going through your mind at that moment?
Couldn't fucking believe what was going on.
What did you do?
I got the gun and I took it outside
Why did you take it outside?
because I didn't want it to cause any more harm.
And if the video shows that happens at about 8:53:53, and at 8:53:54 you're calling 911. Do you recall if you were doing those two things at the same time?
Yes, I was.
And after you put the gun outside and came back in, what did you do?
I got a towel and put it on Destiny.
And when the officer, you saw the video when the first officer arrived, Officer Cummings, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he testified that when he walked in the door, that you were sitting on the couch near Destiny on the phone.
Yes, sir.
Who were you talking to on the phone at that moment?
The 911 dispatcher.
Do you remember what the last words you said to the 911 dispatcher were?
They're here.
So when he walked in and saw you on the phone, that's when you're telling 911 that they're here.
Correct.
Now, we're going to talk about that 911 call. When you made that 911 call, did you know Destiny had been shot?
Yes.
And you told them that a black male, unknown black male, entered the door and fired a shot and shot Destiny.
Yes.
Why did you tell that story to 911?
Because I didn't want Gavin to live with the fact that he had shot his sister for the rest of his life.
The story that an unidentified black male had shot from the door was not true, was it?
No, sir.
And you remember the interview that you had that night later on, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember Mr. Riddle telling you that saying a black man shot your child was racist? He thought that was racist.
Yes, sir.
You're racist.
No, sir.
Callie is your boyfriend, right?
Yes.
What race is Callie?
African American.
What race is Destiny's father, Antoine?
The same.
And Gavin's dad, African American?
Yes, sir.
And let's be honest, your two children, what race are they?
They are biracial. White, African American.
And let's talk for a minute about this gun outside the house. You did put the gun outside the house, right?
We're just not waiting around.
Yes, sir.
What's the objection to? Leaving. Don't leave.
Now, you've heard this testimony about this gun and where it was outside your house, right?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a picture of that gun, which is in a collective exhibit 26, and ask you, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
Okay. Is that where you put that gun?
Yes.
Beside that shrub?
Yes.
Was it your intention to hide the gun under the shrub?
No.
Are there other shrubs back further along that wall?
Yes.
How long after the shot did you take that gun out of the house?
Not very long at all.
Have you ever been at the presence of a shooting before?
No.
As you were on the phone with 911, how would you describe your mental state?
Not very well at all.
Would you say you were thinking clearly?
No, sir.
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happens right after the police show up. You heard Officer Cummings testify. Is that how Destiny got out of the house?
I didn't realize that till that video.
You didn't realize that he's the one who carried her out? And there was no ambulance at that point, was there?
No, sir.
And what were you dealing with at that moment?
Gavin.
Were you allowed to go to the hospital with her in the ambulance?
No, sir.
Why not? Do you know?
The cops insisted that they would take me.
And eventually did they?
Yes, sir.
So you heard that statement, the recording of the statement with Investigator Riddle at the house, right?
Yes.
And it was right after that it was after that you were taken to the hospital.
Yes.
The state just went through a bunch of phone calls and texts that you had made from your phone that evening.
Yes.
And we've talked, and you saw the video, and it's about 9:21:30 that you leave the house in the police car.
Correct.
And there are several calls at 9:03 and 9:21 to Tab.
Yes.
Who is Tab?
One of my friends,
And her first name is?
Tabitha.
Okay, that's thus Tab. Why were you calling Tab at that point?
To get her to come and get Gavin.
And you called Callie, right?
Correct.
And on one of those text messages, you also asked him to go get the gun.
Yes.
What were you calling him about?
I wanted him to come to the hospital.
So that's who you were talking to in the back of the squad car.
Yes.
Do you know what time it was when you got to the hospital?
No, sir.
And did you see Destiny at the hospital?
No.
But at some time, a doctor came out and talked to you.
Yes.
And what did that doctor tell you?
That my daughter had passed away.
And you heard Officer Wardlaw today testify about your reaction.
Yes.
Was he accurate?
No.
What was your reaction when the doctor told you that your daughter had died?
I kept on telling her there's no way that it could be true.
Did you believe at that point that it could be true?
No.
How would you describe your mental state in that moment?
I was in hell.
And where was your mother was still alive at that point, wasn't she?
Yes.
Where was she?
In our home in Bristol.
And what physical condition was she in?
She had her leg amputated about a year before.
After you got that news from the doctor, where did you go next?
To the police station.
Did you ask him to take you there?
No,
Why did you go?
I had to.
How'd you get there?
In a police car.
As you were sitting in that interview room that we've seen on video here, what was your state of mind at that point?
Distraught, heartbroken, devastated.
Had you come to grips yet with the fact that your daughter was dead?
No.
Okay, let's talk for a minute about these interviews you did there at the KPD.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how long after that doctor told you that your daughter was dead that you were talking to those officers? Do you know?
No, sir.
Do you remember how you got into that room?
No.
Do you know what floor you were on?
No.
Do you remember getting into that interview room?
No.
Did they ever offer to let you leave and go talk to somebody or review some notes or?
No.
And pretty early on, you told them you were scared there.
Yes.
And why did you tell them that? What was making you feel scared?
Because I had been raped by a police officer and I felt threatened because of the situation.
And then you've seen this. You were there.
Yes.
And you've seen the videos of our friend Detective Riddle and his response to that. Did that help to calm you?
No, sir.
Did it help you to feel like the police were there really to help you?
No, it proved to me that exactly how I felt was adequate.
And you told them a lot of things during those interviews.
Yes.
Do you remember a lot of it?
No.
Why wouldn't you remember it? Wouldn't it be important to you to get good facts to the police in this investigation?
Again, I'm trying not to, but we can just not leave.
No questions.
I won't leave, Judge. Did you tell them some things that weren't true?
Yes.
Did you know you were telling them some things that weren't true?
Yes.
Did you not know you were telling them some things that weren't true?
Yes.
While you're in that room, have you yet put these pieces together that Destiny is gone?
I still don't want to accept it.
And where was Gavin at that point?
With a neighbor.
In that first interview, we have established through the proof that the hospital declared Destiny dead at about 10:06, and at 11 o'clock you're in the interview room. Is that how you recall that time frame?
I have no idea the time frame.
But if I tell you it's within an hour of your leaving the hospital, would that surprise you?
No.
Judge, if she doesn't know, I'm trying to help this woman get through this story.
Ask open-ended questions. She's your witness.
On your second interview on the 17th, where had you come from when you arrived at the KPD?
From planning Destiny's funeral.
While you were at the hospital, you've heard the testimony of Miss Sands and Detective Wardlaw. Were you trying to give your phone away?
Yes.
Why?
Because it had text messages of me selling drugs.
Did you think they were going to arrest you for that?
Yes.
And it also had the text on there about the gun, about asking somebody to go get the gun. Is that
Yes.
right? Why were you concerned about getting that gun away from the house?
Because I knew that that was the gun that Gavin used to shoot Destiny, and I was trying to protect him.
Now you heard a lot about the fact that you changed your story.
Yes.
You went from the unknown male to Antoine did it.
Yes.
Again, did you tell them Antoine did it in that interview?
No.
Who brought Antoine up?
The detectives.
And how were you feeling about Antoine at that moment?
Not good. I feel like he tortured me.
But still, when they asked you, do you think Antoine would do it the first time, what did you tell them?
No, I knew he didn't do it.
So were you trying to throw Antoine under the bus?
No.
When you told them he didn't do it, did they stop talking about Antoine doing it?
No, sir.
What happened when you finally said, you're right, I can't take it anymore? What happened?
They became positive and stopped screaming at me.
When you told them you had PTSD, did anybody ask you anything about what that was, or how you got it, or if you were in treatment or anything?
No, sir.
And that was diagnosed, and you got medication prescribed after the rape.
Yes, at Helen Ross McNabb.
Now, the state gets up and shows you a judgment saying that man pled guilty to making false reports to the TBI. What did he do to you?
He raped me.
And eventually, in your discussions with the police, you told them that Gavin did it.
Yes.
And do you recall what they said would happen if you kept saying Gavin did it? What that would subject Gavin to?
Not right off, no.
Do you remember the term forensic interview?
Yes.
Did they say that once or more? I'm asking her if she remembers the term, Judge.
Lady, Mr. Bailey, don't lead.
Did you know anything about what a forensic interview was?
No, sir.
Have you seen that video we sat in court and watched?
Yes, sir.
Over the period of time from the shot being fired on the 14th of September to your last interview with them on the 17th of September, what was your goal in talking to the police?
To protect Gavin.
Did it ever occur to you that as a result of that, you would be sitting here in a courtroom being tried for first-degree murder?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. Not being charged for.
She said what her goal was. You can cross-examine it.
Why didn't you think you'd be sitting here in trial?
Because I didn't have anything to do with the shooting of my daughter.
Did you shoot Destiny?
No.
Did you shoot that gun?
No.
Did you intend for that gun to be in a place where your kids could get to it?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Howington. The state's probably going to have some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Good. You are recognized for cross-examination.
Okay, Ms. Howington, so we're gonna get into the story that you've told for the first time today here in just a minute. But before we get into that, I want to back up, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to take you back to the very first story that you told to the 911 caller. When you called 911, we'll talk about that.
Yes, ma'am.
You initially said that it was an unknown black male. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that that black male had essentially broken into your home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that that black male who you'd never seen a day before in your life shot your daughter in cold blood right in front of you. Is that correct?
Yes.
You said that Gavin was in the room. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that when this unknown black male who drove a black, what you believe to be Chrysler 300, you recall telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said that he looked at you and his eyes got really big and that he just ran out. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was your initial story to 911 when you first called, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the 911 call. You just testified that you are walking up into your house and you see the gun go off when Gavin shoots Destiny. Is that what you just testified to?
Yes.
And you've seen the video, the surveillance video from your neighbor's house.
Yes.
Have you not? You've seen that you enter your home at 8:50,
Correct.
correct? And now you know that the 911 call was not placed until over 3 minutes later at 8:53:53. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you go back in your home after seeing your daughter get shot by your 2-year-old son, according to you today, and you wait almost 4 minutes to call 911. Is that your testimony?
I had to find my phone. It had fell in between the cushions in the other living room.
Okay. So you see Gavin get shot, you call 911 4 minutes later. But again, you don't tell any of this to the police initially, do you?
No, ma'am.
You blame it on some stranger that you've never seen before in your life that came in and shot your 5-year-old in cold blood. That was your story initially.
An unidentified person, yes. To protect my
Unidentified
son.
black male is what you said, is it not?
Yes, ma'am.
In a black Chrysler 300, you were pretty specific about that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that he wasn't wearing a hat,
Yes, ma'am.
that he was a little bit darker complexion than Officer Wardlaw. You actually you described it even to that extent, correct?
Clarified. Now we're on to the interview with Officer Wardlaw. And they're talking about the 911 call. If we could break that up so she knows what she's being asked.
All right, we'll rephrase the question. At some point in time, did you later describe him as being darker than Officer Wardlaw?
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
ask your next question.
All right, so that's 911. So police get on scene.
Judge, that's not 911. She says
Okay,
911.
I apologize.
Rephrase your question.
Going back to immediately after the 911 call was placed. Police arrive on scene about 3 minutes after the call is initially placed. Is that correct?
I assume.
You've seen the videos.
Yes.
Okay. And you said just now that you didn't even realize that Officer Cummings had taken Destiny outside until the trial today. Is that correct? That's what you
Yes.
just testified to?
But
Yes.
that's not true today. He testified on Tuesday.
Okay.
We need to, if we're gonna-
Until the trial, her testimony was she didn't realize that Officer Cummings had taken Destiny out. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
All right, ask your next question.
And so at 8:56:42, so within about 30 seconds of Officer Cummings arriving, you were on your phone trying to call Callie.
Yes.
Is that why you didn't pay attention to the fact that he was taking your daughter outside?
No.
But again, your daughter's outside at some point and you don't even know she's out there. You don't even know that the police officer has taken your daughter that's been shot outside.
I had went out there and asked if she was okay and if Gavin was okay. That was also on the video that you just spoke of.
Okay, but again, Ms. Howington, you just testified that you didn't realize that Destiny had been taken outside because you were tending to Gavin. Was that not your testimony just now?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew where Gavin was,
Yes.
according to your own statement just now. But you didn't know that the officer had taken Destiny outside to wait for the ambulance. Until the trial, you didn't know that.
No.
But you were on your phone trying to call Callie.
If that's what it says, then yes. I went out there and they told me to step back, that they were doing everything that they possibly could.
Okay. So let's talk about when you meet Officer Riddle for the first time at your house before you are taken to UT Hospital. Okay. You once again make a claim that it is an unknown individual, an unknown male, broke into your house and shot your daughter in cold blood, didn't you?
Yes, to protect my son, I sure did.
Okay. You didn't say anything about the gun being outside at that point, did you?
No.
Again, you're sticking with the story that it's this unknown man. So to the police officers, they think that there is a murderer on the loose based on your statement, correct?
Yes.
And that statement that you made was made prior to you ever talking to a law enforcement officer that night.
Yes.
So you are the one that put this idea that this was a murder in the investigator's head, correct?
That's what you want to say, yes.
Well, ma'am, it's not my words, okay? Are you the one that told police officers that someone had came in and murdered your child?
Yes.
And so that is the reason that these officers treated this as a murder investigation, is it not?
Yes, but I was trying to protect my son at any cost.
Okay. Now, you also said that the man that came to your house, kind of in the interim, you called that an individual by the name of Jay. You
Yes.
said that you were paying him for window tinting.
Yes.
Again, your daughter was shot September the 14th, 2019, correct?
Yes.
How many times did you tell the officers about this Jay individual?
I don't recall.
You never told him about Jay, did you? You have to answer out loud for the court reporter.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the very first time that we're ever hearing about who this mysterious individual is that's in your home for 63 seconds is when you're sitting on that stand right now.
Yes.
You didn't tell officers that night who was there, none of that. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then you're taken to, after Detective Riddle gets on the scene, you are taken to UT Hospital, correct?
In a police car, yes.
All right, and you've seen that video, correct?
Yes.
And you've heard your own statements on that video, right?
Yes.
Where you were in the back seat on your cell phone, correct?
Yes.
And you've said here today that you were on the phone with Callie,
At one point, yes.
and you're telling him to go get the gun.
Yes.
Now again, you stated that you were trying to protect Gavin. Is that your testimony here today?
Correct.
Do you remember telling the officers during that first interview, right after you left the hospital, that the reason you put the gun outside was because you were afraid you would get in trouble?
No.
You don't recall telling officers that you were scared that you would get in trouble? And that's
No,
why you
ma'am.
put the gun outside?
No, ma'am.
All right, so once you get to UT Hospital, you are allowed to keep your cell phone, right?
Yes.
The same cell phone that you just used in the car on the way there to try and get somebody to come get that gun.
Yes.
And once you realize that at some point officers may want to search your phone, that is when you go in the bathroom. Correct?
Correct.
That is when you try and get a completely innocent person involved in your mess. Is that right? Trying to give your phone away to a person who knows nothing about you or this situation.
Yes.
You were trying to give your phone to an individual who again, knew nothing, and you're trying to give incriminating evidence to a completely innocent person in that bathroom.
Yes.
And when she wouldn't take it, you broke it.
I don't say break it. I put water on it.
You didn't break it? You
I
didn't break
don't
your
recall
phone?
breaking it. No, ma'am.
All right, so when officers recovered your cell phone, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 48. This was the screen of your cell phone. Is it your testimony that you didn't cause this damage?
It was already broken.
So you had been using a phone like this?
Yes.
You didn't bend it in the bathroom before running water over
I
it?
don't recall that. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just do not recall that.
So when you did you run water over it under the sink, or did you put it in the toilet?
In the sink.
The sink. Okay, so again, you are at UT Hospital. You know that your daughter is unresponsive at that point, correct?
Yes.
You said it yourself. You tried to speak to her. She was unresponsive, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You know that doctors are trying to do everything they can to potentially save their life, to save Destiny's life at that point, right?
Yes.
And your action is to go in a bathroom and try and get rid of your cell phone while your daughter is in that hospital fighting for her life. Is that correct?
Yes, they would not let me see her.
So after you leave UT Hospital, you then go back to KPD. We've seen that initial interview, and I want to go through that for a minute, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So you stated, and I think we've heard it a few times, you said that you told the officers that you were scared because you were raped. Is that what you think you said?
Yes.
If the recording shows that you actually never said that you were scared, you said, it's not that I don't care, I was raped, right before Investigator Riddle kind of jumps up against Mad. Would that be accurate?
That mischaracterizes the evidence. It was 10 minutes before that she's telling you.
All right. The jury will judge the evidence. It's cross-examination. She can ask the question. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the ultimate finders of fact in this case. You will judge what the tape does say and when it does say it. Ask the question again.
If the recording of your first interview shows that when you bring up the fact that you were raped, the context of that conversation is you said, it's not that I don't care, but I was raped. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And again, I do want to go back to this. You stated that you put the gun outside because you were trying to protect your son. Is that right?
Correct.
That's your statement here today.
Correct.
But when you were interviewed initially, do you recall that Officer Wardlow said, okay, so why did you think to get the gun and put it outside? Do you recall him asking you that?
Not right off, no, ma'am.
Well, do you recall telling him because I, as in you, didn't want to be charged with having a gun? Do you remember saying that?
No, ma'am.
That's right, Sean. I'll show you a copy of the transcript that we've all been going off of.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
I'll have you read, this is page 37 of this transcript. I'll have you read the second and third lines if you could.
Wardlaw said, okay, why did you think to get the gun and put it outside?
I'm on the objective form.
I asked her to read it. You don't have to read it outside, just read it to you. But read
All
it
right,
out loud.
are you
I'm sorry.
refreshing her recollection or impeaching her with this prior inconsistent statement?
I am just refreshing it this
All
one.
right, read it to yourself,
Please read
Ms.
those two
Howington.
lines to yourself.
I've read them.
Okay. So after reading this, Ms. Howington, you did in fact tell the officers is because you didn't want to get in trouble for having a gun. Correct?
That's what it says, yes, ma'am.
Okay, you did not tell the officers when they asked you right then that you were protecting your son. Correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's go through some of these statements. So even once we get back to KPD after you leave the hospital, initially you again say that it is a man that you've never seen before in your life that came in and shot your daughter and killed her, right?
Yes.
And at this point, you know that the officers know that you've just tried to either give away or destroy your cell phone, correct? You're aware of that.
Yes.
Okay. And you begin, y'all talk a little bit about Antoine, and initially you do say it's not Antoine, correct?
Yes.
And you stick with the story that it's still this black male that you've never met before in your life at one point. Kind of
Yes.
stick with that initially. Then you bring up the fact that while you were at the park, there were 3 Mexican boys, and that might have had something to do with the shooting. You recall saying that?
Somewhat, yes.
You recall saying that you were being followed on your way home?
And I thought that was true.
Okay. So once you finally say, actually, it was Antoine, even within that story, it changes a lot, doesn't it? Even once you say that Antoine was the one that shot Destiny, you change your story up even within that a lot, don't you?
If that's what you want to say, yes.
Well, let me just tell you exactly what you said. All right. Do you recall initially saying that Antoine brought a gun inside your house and shot Destiny?
Not right off, no, ma'am.
You don't recall it? Would it help you to rewatch the portion of your interview where you said that?
I guess, or you can show me the transcript like you just did.
I got these queued up, so this might be faster.
You told us that earlier.
Because, I mean, this is his daughter, too. I know that he killed her, but I just don't feel like he did it on purpose. I feel like he was trying to kill me.
So he was already there. What happens?
He tried to talk. He came in the house. And when he came in the house, I told him I didn't want to talk to him. And he went back outside the house.
Okay. Then what happened?
So he came back in.
Just, he brought the gun back in with him.
Yes.
So this gun that Callie gave you, how long have you had it?
No.
Okay, so after hearing that, would you agree with me that initially you said that Antoine came to your home, right?
After they suggested Antoine, yes, I went with that story.
Okay. Did they suggest to you that he leaves and comes back in with a gun?
That's what he said.
That's what you said, Miss Howington.
Okay.
Did you hear yourself say that? That you and Antoine are arguing? Did you hear yourself say that just now?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear yourself say that Antoine left and then came back in with a gun?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the next thing you say. So then you change that story and say, actually, Antoine was there. You're still sticking with the fact that Antoine was there. But now you say that Gavin got a hold of the gun. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Do you recall saying that little 2-year-old Gavin had actually moved a stool from your living room area to your closet in your bedroom?
Yes.
You said that he might have even put on your high heels, right?
No.
That's not.
No.
Tender an objection.
The objection is she is making things up. That is not what the statement says.
All right. Rephrase your question and refer to whatever portion of the interview that you want to impeach her with.
At one point, did you say that Gavin took the stool and moved it in front of your closet?
Yes.
Did you then say that he reached up and got the gun?
Yes.
When the officers asked you how that was possible, did you not say that he could have put on your high heels?
No, I said he got my high heels out of the closet.
when
I
you're
don't
talking
think
about
that
him
I said-
reaching the gun?
I wasn't sure how he got the gun. I just knew that he had got the gun.
Okay. So again, you said after you change it to Antoine brings a gun in, you finally do admit that it was a gun in your home that shot and killed your daughter, right? You
Yes.
said that Gavin climbed up in the closet and got it out of, well, you didn't say the black bag at first, did you?
I don't recall.
And then, according to your own statement at that time, you moved the stool before officers got there back into the living room, right?
I don't recall that either.
You don't recall telling officers that?
Ma'am, I was not in my right mind at that time. I had just seen my baby shoot my daughter.
Ms. Howington, have you been paying attention? Have you watched your interview here in court?
Somewhat, yes, but I don't want to remember any of this.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm gonna have to play it for you again if you can't remember.
That's fine.
Show you this transcript again. I'm gonna go back for a second. We're gonna talk about the high heels. All right, Ms. Howington, you wouldn't mind just from here to here. You can just read that to yourself, and when you're done, let me know.
Can I get the page number, please?
Page 43. I apologize.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now that you've read this, do you agree with me that when the officers asked you how Gavin got hold of the gun in the closet, you said he pulled, here you say a chair. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And you said, in the closet because he puts on my high heels. Correct?
Yes.
So in fact, you did say that.
I don't recall, but yes, ma'am, it's there.
Okay. So let's fast forward just a little bit here to your interview on September the 17th. Again, you maintained at that point that Gavin shot Destiny, right?
That's the truth, ma'am.
But then you change it up even a little bit more and you said that you were in the kitchen and that Antoine, in fact, was not there. Is that right?
I don't recall, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I was not in my right mind. Some things I remember and some things I just don't.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna play a portion of this clip and then you tell me if you remember saying this.
To fix the roast or whatever, or get it out because it had been for too long. Well, I didn't actually turn it off, but it was almost it was just like that. And Antoine came to the door, and he was screaming and hollering about Callie yet again. Like, I don't know what the hell he has against Callie, but he got to screaming and hollering about Callie, and we got to arguing, and we kind of tussled a little bit, and I asked him to please leave. And he was like, oh, I know what you're going to do. You're a police call, bitch. You're going to call the police, blah, blah, blah. So he left. And then when I went in the kitchen, Gavin went into my room, and Destiny was laying on the couch watching Netflix. And I came back and sat down, and I was getting shot. Was it?
All right, so let's break that down just a little bit. So in this version of events, you say that Antoine and you get into a disagreement. Did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
You say that you tussle a little bit, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you say that Antoine leaves, right?
I think that I was confused and everything was coming together from what happened on the 12th.
Okay, but in this statement, you would agree with me, what you just watched, you said that Antoine leaves, didn't you?
Yes.
And you said that after Antoine leaves, that's when Gavin gets the gun. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You say that you're in the kitchen of your home, correct?
Yes.
And that's when Gavin shot Destiny, right?
Yes.
All right, let's go to the next version. In that one, again, you now put Antoine back in the house. Do you recall this version? When Antoine and you get into it and he takes the gun from you, do you recall telling officers that?
Yes.
Okay, so now, after you previously said that he's left the house, you put him back in the house, and you say that that Antoine took the gun from you, right?
Yes.
And that at that point in time, you say that that's when the gun is shot, right?
Yes.
So now it's not Gavin once again.
I don't ever want it to be Gavin, ma'am. I don't want him to live with this. Do you not understand that?
I'm asking you what you said, okay? Again, you're blaming Antoine here. You're making up a whole lot of facts. I want to be clear about this. The officers are not the one saying that Antoine's leaving, coming, going, none of that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's you that's making up these facts, right?
They brought up Antoine first, and I just agreed with it.
Okay, they brought up that he might have been the shooter first, right?
Correct.
They didn't give you all these additional facts, did they?
No, ma'am.
They didn't put all that in your head, did they?
No, ma'am.
They also asked you multiple times whether or not you were the shooter during your first interview, didn't they?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall them ever saying, did you accidentally shoot your child, or we think you might have shot your child? You don't ever remember them saying that?
No, ma'am.
We will come back to that as well. All right. Now let's talk about the gun. Ms. Howington, you just testified a moment ago that you received that gun from Callie a few months before this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you say 2 to 3 months maybe?
Around about, yes, ma'am.
And you also just testified that within 2 to 3 months you had never gotten that gun out before September the 12th, right?
Before September the 12th?
For September the 12th, when Callie and Antoine are arguing, I think you testified that you didn't have anything to do with that gun before then.
Correct.
You had not gotten it out.
Correct.
You had kept it in a bag in the top of your closet.
Correct.
Okay. Was Gavin in your room whenever you took that gun out of the bag on the 12th?
No.
Okay. Was this the first gun you'd ever owned?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to September 14th of 2019, had anybody ever told you that maybe you were storing guns improperly?
Objection, Your Honor.
Approach the bench. All right, Ms. Allen, can you go down and have a seat next to your lawyer for just a moment? All right. General, I think you were not asking the question appropriately, but we discussed, and I would not permit the state to go into, because it's premised upon hearsay if it's coming in a text message. I guess I thought they were going to call Mr. Oliver, but they have not chosen not to. But the question, and if my notes are correct, the text message says what date that he is texting about. August the 4th of 2019. He's sending a text. This homicide occurred on September the 14th of 2019. Mr. Oliver is sending a text to Ms. Howington complaining about the fact that she has left a firearm on her nightstand. I did not allow that to come in via the officer because it's hearsay. If the state had chosen to call Mr. Oliver, we would have had a separate discussion. But Ms. Howington put this directly at issue in her direct examination, not cross, direct examination, when she testified that that gun was put up in the bag and it was not touched again thereafter until the 12th. It's directly at issue.
And Judge, tell me how that makes it not hearsay.
The question is, do they have a good faith basis to ask if she had left the gun on the nightstand?
What?
And yes, they
based
do.
on the text.
Correct.
And have you heard from Mr. Oliver?
The
He
question-
called him a nutcase. He's an abuser and a liar. So how do we take this text? Because she said she didn't move the gun and leave it on a nightstand, that the liar can testify.
I'm not going to debate this with you. That you have put it directly at issue by her statement about that gun and not touching it. That text directly contradicts that.
So now they can, it directly contradicts it if it's true.
Exactly.
It's a statement out of court by a non-testifying witness.
Exactly. The
How do
question
I-
is, do they have a good faith basis to ask the question?
And-
they have a text message which she never contradicts. I did not allow them to put this in their case in chief.
Under
It's coming in.
Crawford, how does she get the right to cross-examine her accuser? If you let a text message from a man who they have
I
under
didn't
subpoena,
let it in.
who is, you're getting ready to. It's
You
this.
made it relevant.
No, I didn't, Judge. I did not make it relevant because I don't
get
believe
the
it's
final
true.
say, and I said you did.
And so
It's
Crawford
coming
does
in.
not exist anymore?
It's coming in.
Judge, how do I cross-examine that?
It's coming in, Mr. Whalen. They have the right to ask her if she left that gun on the nightstand.
They have a right to call that witness.
They may choose to do that, but right now the question is, do they have the right to cross-examine her? And I have ruled that they do.
And they can, here's the problem. She asked a question, were you told by someone else that you were improperly storing a
And
handgun?
that's not the proper form to ask the
Well-
question. I sustain it as to that, but they have the right to inquire. She put it at issue in her direct examination.
And what else other hearsay are they going to get to speak loudly from this stand and then say, maybe we didn't ask the right question?
Whalen, it is late and I'm not going to argue with you. I have ruled. If I am wrong, the Court of Criminal Appeals will tell me so. It's coming in. Line the jury back up.
Only the question, did you ever leave your gun on the nightstand?
They have the right to ask the question, have you left your gun on the nightstand? That's what the text is complaining about. On or about August, or whatever date that was, because that is within 2 months of when this occurred, when she said she'd gotten the gun and hadn't touched it. All rise for the jury. Everyone may have a seat. Waive the call from the state.
Play the call, Your Honor.
For the defense. All right, y'all good? You are recognized for further cross-examination of Ms. Howington.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Howington, on August the 4th of 2019, did you leave that gun laying out on the nightstand in your home?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And let's talk about some of the statements you made as to how you obtained that gun. All right. So initially, you said that. Let's see here. Well, let's just talk about the gun in general when you're being interviewed. Do you recall once you are confronted with the fact that a gun was found outside your house? Do you remember during your first interview when officers confronted you with that fact?
Not right off, no, ma'am.
Do you remember being confronted at all during that interview about the fact that a gun was found outside of your home?
I assume so, yes.
Okay. Do you remember specifically being asked whether or not the gun found outside your home was the gun that was used to shoot and kill your daughter?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, can we get that?
So the gun that we found outside, that Kelly gave you, we test fire that gun. It's not going to match anything with Destiny.
No,
Have you ever even shot a gun?
no,
So you don't know how to use a gun.
no.
All right, so you just hurt yourself there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So would you agree with me that you told officers initially that the gun found outside your home was not the gun used to shoot and kill your daughter?
I just seen it, yes, ma'am.
That is what you said, right?
Yes.
Okay. You then switch it up a little bit. Do you recall finally admitting that that was in fact the gun that was used to shoot your daughter at some point? Do you remember saying that?
I guess, yes, ma'am.
Do you remember also saying that Antoine wiped it off?
Not right off, no, ma'am.
I'm going to need the screen again, Judge.
Is that gun the murder weapon? I'm just asking. If it is, tell us it is. If it's the weapon he used now and you took it outside, tell me the truth. Is it the murder weapon? Because I think we've got ballistics and we're going to be able to tell. I want you to hear it from your mouth. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Do you want this thing?
Yes, and he wiped it off.
Okay. You heard yourself just then. Would you agree with me that at this point you've now admitted that the gun found outside your home was in fact the weapon and that Antoine wiped it off, right?
That's what I said, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you initially remember telling officers that you had no idea that there was even a gun outside of your house? Do you recall that?
I will continue to say the same thing, ma'am. I was trying to protect my son, and you just can't accept that this was an accident. You just can't accept it.
Ma'am, listen. My question was, you initially told the officers that you had no idea about a gun outside of your house, didn't you?
Ma'am, I was not in my right
Ma'am?
mind. I had just seen my baby shoot my daughter. Do you not understand?
I hear what you're saying, but my question to you was, did you initially tell the officers that you had no idea about any sort of gun outside of your home?
If it's on the video, then that's what I said, ma'am.
Can we get the screen, please?
You want a gun? Ever had a gun? It would surprise you if we told you that a gun was found outside the house. That would surprise you. Why not?
Yes, it was.
That would surprise you.
So again, right here, you tell the officers that you don't have a gun, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You tell the officers that it would surprise you if a gun was found outside your home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But seeing as how you were the one that put the gun out there, that's not true, is it?
I was trying to protect my son. I was not in my right mind.
And at that time, you had also asked multiple people to go and pick up that gun, had you not?
Because I did not want it to come back to Gavin. Do you not understand what I'm saying, ma'am?
Miss Howington, my question is, at that point in time, you had asked multiple people to come and pick up that gun that you put outside your home, had you not?
To protect Gavin.
Maybe it's a yes or a no. Had you asked multiple people to get that gun from outside your house, yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now she may explain her answer, Judge, when she's answering yes.
I think she has, but if you want to, again, explain your reasoning for doing so.
I was trying to protect my son, and nobody wants to accept that. What would you do?
Can I answer that? Okay. All right. At that point in time, again, you had sent these text messages to multiple individuals, but you had, because your phone had been broken and run underwater, you didn't actually know whether or not those individuals were able to go get the gun, did you?
I have no idea, ma'am.
Well, did you receive any correspondence back to your multiple text messages asking people to go get the gun?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And so until officers confronted you with the fact that a gun was found outside your house, you didn't know whether it was there or whether somebody actually was able to go get it, did you?
Yes.
Is this the first gun you've ever had?
Ask me.
I don't think I've asked this specific question.
Has not been asked and answered.
Is this the first firearm you ever had?
Yes, ma'am.
May we approach, Your Honor? Ms. Howington, do you recall when, again, when you're being interviewed, do you recall at one point in time Officer Wardlaw had said something to the effect of, don't you think it's your responsibility as a parent to keep a gun safe?
Not right off, no, ma'am.
Page 52 here, our transcript. I ask you to just read the green highlighted portion of 2 sentences there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So after reading that, would you agree with me that at some point during your interview, Investigator Wardlaw says, don't you think it's your responsibility as a parent to keep your gun safe, right? He asked you that question.
Yes.
And you agreed with him and said yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You agreed that it is your responsibility to keep your gun safe in your home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the story that you've just told here today. You said that Jay comes to your house at, what time was it again? Can't remember off the top of my head. A few minutes before. Let's see. Yeah. All right, so we've seen the video now where the individual is in your home for 63 seconds. Did you see that video?
Yes, ma'am.
So you are now saying that that is an individual by the name of Jay, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they enter your home at 8:46:43. Would you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, this is today in this courtroom on that stand is the very first time in almost 5 years that you have ever said that Jay, you've identified the person that came into your home, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said that after Jay leaves, you then walk out and move your vehicle, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You then make sure that your children are okay before going back outside to smoke. Is that what you just testified to?
Yes, ma'am.
Now again, is this the first time here in this courtroom after almost 5 years, is this the first time that you're telling this version of events?
In the courtroom, yes.
Okay. Did you ever tell the officers the version that you just told on that stand here today? Have you ever told the officers that?
What are we speaking of?
That the version of events of how Destiny got shot, what you just testified to on direct examination, did you ever tell the officers that version of events?
She's going to need to break that down and be a little more specific.
Did you ever tell the officers before today, did you ever tell anyone other than your attorney, I guess, before today, that you saw Gavin shoot Destiny as you were walking in your house?
Yes.
You told the officers that?
Not the officers. You said anyone.
Okay, but again, this case has been pending for a long time, has it not, Ms. Howington?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the very first time that you are telling the version of events that you just told. You never told the officers in the multiple times that you were interviewed that version of events, did you?
I did tell them that Gavin shot Destiny.
Okay. You never told them that you weren't even inside your home when the shot occurred, correct?
Not that I know of.
So, again, your statement here today is that on September the 12th, Antoine took your gun and just disassembled it, I guess, in the front yard? Is that your statement?
He took it away from me, yes, ma'am, and took it apart and threw it on the ground.
And Callie put it back together?
Correct.
And you said that Callie put it up?
Yes.
And you didn't see it again?
Correct.
Until you say you saw Gavin shoot Destiny?
I didn't say I saw it. I saw Gavin shoot Destiny.
So you did say that. Never mind. Okay. So, again, we're talking about a 2-day span where you apparently don't know where in your house this gun is, correct?
I didn't normally just go check to see where a gun was. So no.
So you don't. So what you're saying is that prior to leading up to this event, you didn't keep tabs on where the gun was in your home?
I knew where it was, where I put it when I put it there.
But again, if your testimony is that somebody else put it away, you didn't think to check to make sure that it was in a safe location?
I trusted him.
In your house with your 2 small children, you didn't think to go and check to make sure that it was in a safe location?
At least twice.
Well, I don't think
She
that
hasn't.
question
She just
has
said
been.
she
no,
trusted
that-
him. So
Answer that question, Ms. Howington.
did you, so again, in your home where your 2 small children live, in the 2 days after you think Callie puts this gun away, you didn't actually go check to see where he put it?
No, ma'am.
You didn't ask him where he put it?
No, ma'am.
You didn't ask him if he put a loaded gun up with the safety off?
No, ma'am.
You didn't ask him if he put a loaded gun up with the safety off that was cocked and ready to shoot?
No, ma'am.
And you would agree with me that if 2-year-old Gavin found this gun within the 3 minutes that you're outside, it had to be somewhere pretty readily accessible to him, correct?
I never seen it with my own eyes till the 14th.
So for 2 days, you don't lay eyes on your gun, but in 3 minutes, your 2-year-old found it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You're loaded, cocked, no safety on gun, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I guess just to clear things up, I just want to be sure that we're all clear here. Antoine was not at your house on September the 14th of 2019, was he? That
No,
night,
ma'am.
he was nowhere, well, he was not there, right?
Correct.
You and him did not get into a tussle.
I told you earlier that I feel like everything was melting together in my mind because I was under so much stress.
Now, you remember in your first interview telling the officers about the events of September the 12th, do you not?
Yes.
Okay, so in fact you did remember those events that day. right?
From the 12th?
When you're being interviewed, you told the officers about the events of September the 12th, correct?
Yes.
So that was separate. And then you go on to, again, in 2 separate interviews, continue to say that Antoine was at your house that night, right?
And I also told you, ma'am, I was not thinking clearly.
So you didn't know who was in your house then, but today you do?
After looking at things and talking, some things I have recollected and some things I haven't.
So again, immediately following something that you witnessed with your own eyes, you were so unsure about events that you put people in your home that weren't even there. Is that what you're saying?
I guess.
But you had at least enough sense to text people and tell them that you had hid the gun outside, did you not?
I was trying to protect my son.
Again, you just testified that it was hard for you to remember all the things that happened that night, did you not?
Yes.
But you remembered that you hid that gun in a bush by your air conditioner, did you not? When you texted those people to come and get it, you certainly remembered that, didn't you?
To protect my son.
I'm going to need a yes or a no, ma'am. You
Yes.
remembered that. Because that's what you put in the text messages, right?
After I seen the text messages, yes.
Okay. So you got that part. That was fine. But you can't remember, immediately after the shooting, you couldn't remember who was in your house?
Immediately after?
Correct. When you're being interviewed, you say Antoine was in your house.
Judge, can we clarify when we're being
But it's been asked and answered, gentlemen. Move on.
Okay, now again, the story that you just testified to, you said that you were outside, where were you, on your porch?
I was walking in the door with my hand on the door when I seen the flash of light from the gun.
And so was Gavin in that second living room?
Yes.
And so you weren't actually in the room when he shot, correct?
No.
Now, you do understand, you've heard the expert testify about gunshot residue. You heard that testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
You do understand that gunshot residue was found on your clothing, correct?
And I assume that it came from when I was trying to help my daughter. Do you not understand?
Let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about you trying to help your daughter, okay? You stated that you rendered aid to her. How did you do that?
I was talking to her, saying her name. I got a towel. I prayed.
Again, you've heard the testimony of the officers who were on scene, have you not?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Howington, you didn't have a drop of blood on you. So how were you rendering aid to your daughter on scene?
I didn't really see a whole lot of blood on the front of her until we looked at that video or whatever the pictures. I didn't even know that there was that much blood on the couch.
You saw the front of her shirt, right? That had to be cut open?
Yes.
Saw that it had blood all over it, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so
It didn't have blood all over it, no. It just was like right here. When it happened, that's what I seen.
So you said that you rendered aid while you were on the phone with 911, is that right?
Yes. I kept asking them, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And they
Was
couldn't
that
tell
before-
me.
Was that before or after, again, while you're on the phone with 911, is that before or after you're outside hiding the weapon that was just used to shoot your
I was
daughter?
on the phone with 911 when I took the gun outside.
Correct. But you also just testified that while you were on the phone with 911 that you were rendering aid to your daughter. So I'm just trying to figure out how it was that you were hiding a gun and rendering aid to your daughter.
I did not hide a gun, ma'am. I just threw it out there.
Okay. But again, that's not my question. My question is, at what point, when you're on the phone with 911 and you are taking the gun outside and throwing it in the bush, when did you render aid to your daughter?
Right after. I did not want the gun to be in there because I didn't want it to cause any more harm.
And you didn't want to get in trouble, did you?
I'm sitting here right now, ma'am.
Again, that's not my question, Miss Howington. My question is, from your very first statement, you said that the reason you took that gun outside is because you didn't want to get in trouble, right?
If I get in trouble, I can't take care of Gavin.
Ms. Howington, my question is that what you said to officers that night? That the reason you took that gun outside is because you yourself did not want to get in trouble?
I assume so, yes.
Okay. Now, your attorney asked you about this. I won't go into it a lot, but I do want to ask. Now, you've talked a lot about this rape that occurred in Bristol, right?
It was in Kingsport.
In Kingsport. I apologize. I'm from Kingsport. I should have known better. Again, are you aware that the individual in that case was never charged with rape?
No, ma'am.
You're aware that that individual only pled guilty to filing a false police report?
I assume so. I didn't know that, no.
You also testified a minute ago that you had a failure to appear for a speeding ticket, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You wrote out a statement and gave it to TBI about what happened to you.
Yes.
You wrote that you had a failure to appear from an assault charge from when you lived in Bristol, correct?
Not that I know of, no, ma'am.
You don't recall writing that?
No, ma'am.
You don't recall saying that on February 20th, 2018, you went to court, you received...
Judge, I'm going to object. That's not her written statement. That's a TBI report someone else wrote.
I am happy to go get the written one.
Okay, we're not trying a rape case. Let's move along.
Okay. So it's your testimony, though, that it was a speeding ticket, not an assault charge.
Yes.
So you did 28 days of community service for a speeding ticket. Is that your testimony?
No. Up there, you do 30 days of community service for any failure to appear.
Now, the officer that we're talking about, this was not, this was the person who was responsible for transporting people to and from community service, right?
And overseeing us.
Okay. Not a detective, anything like that. This was a person who is a transport officer.
I have no idea.
Let's talk about this PTSD. You saw in the video that you have a lot of medication that you take. What medications do you take for PTSD?
Prozac, Buciprone, hydroxyzine, several others. It's just a few of them.
Do you ever sell your medication?
No, ma'am.
You heard the testimony of Mr. Joe Keys, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you heard him testify that he had purchased, I believe he said, roxycodones with you. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, we see the text messages from your phone. Do you remember these text messages?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember that literally within the minutes leading up to your daughter being shot, he's texting you about pills, right?
He's texting me about pills.
Correct, right? He's texting you about pills. None of these, your testimony is that none of the pills that you're selling to Joe Keys, those aren't your prescriptions?
I have PTSD. They don't prescribe pain pills for PTSD.
But you had them anyway. But you had them to sell to him, even though you weren't prescribed them.
Yes.
Okay.
Same instruction from a couple days ago, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that Ms. Howington may or may not have done this is relevant for other purposes, but you may not assume that this is in some way suggestive of a propensity to break the law. Does everybody understand the distinction? Go ahead.
I also want to ask you about one specific thing that you said to Mr. Key. Right here. So, 926, go to my house, the back way, get my gun out of the bush under the air conditioner. Gavin shot Destiny, then come to UT, and I got you for free. Are you referring to pills at that point when you say I got you for free?
I assume so.
Would you agree that people who sell drugs sometimes have guns for protection?
Objection, Art. She wouldn't know that.
If she knows.
If you know. Would you agree with that statement or disagree with that statement?
I don't know.
about, I believe your attorney asked you about something that was said about a forensic interview. You recall your attorney asking you about that?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that you were scared because you weren't sure what that meant.
I mean, yeah.
So if the officer told you that it was literally just an interview, your testimony is that that scared you enough to not tell the truth that night.
You just showed me pictures of you guys or someone taking pictures of my son while he was crying. So,
me.
yes, I don't think that that was anything that he needed to go through.
And just to clarify, you didn't see pictures of me taking pictures of your son.
Someone,
And you're saying pictures of your son?
yes, the ones that you showed.
They were introduced to Officer Howington when they went to child help and had him standing against the
Okay,
wall.
you're not testifying. Ask the next question.
Your Honor, I'm talking about the interview that night. They made a big deal about the fact that, that Officer Riddle mentioned a forensic interview. That interview didn't occur that night, so it can't be that.
You're not testifying either. Ask the next question.
Okay, so again, the fact that the officer said that your son would be interviewed scared you enough to where you had to lie that night.
I assume so, yes.
And you recall the officers telling you multiple times that they don't take 2-year-olds to jail, correct?
It didn't matter. Those pictures proved that no one really cared. They were taking pictures of my baby while he was crying.
What pictures are you referring to, Miss Howington?
How am I supposed to get him?
Where was he when he was crying?
I don't know.
Now, which interview are you referring to?
I'm referring to the very first interview.
I suspect it's number 47. Collectively.
Are you talking about this picture?
Yes.
Where your son is just being measured against a wall.
He looks scared to death, and I'm pretty sure that he's crying.
What about this picture? Right thereafter.
Okay, but who's to say the time frame of that? The first one, he looks scared to death and crying.
In this picture, you're saying that your son looks terrified, right?
Yes.
But it's just, the only thing is a tape measure just being held up beside of him, right? And for that reason, because your son got a tape measure held up beside of him, you said that you had to lie about what happened. You had to protect him from a tape measure.
No, that's not what I said, ma'am.
Okay. Are you aware that the reason that we had to take those photographs of Gavin is because you lied and said that he got the gun by using a
I
stool?
did not lie.
You didn't lie when you said that Gavin...
I assumed that Gavin got a stool because I was not sure how he got the gun to shoot his sister.
Ma'am, do you recall saying that you saw the stool at your closet and moved it back before officers got there?
Not right off, no.
If you said that, would that be a lie? If you said in your first interview that you saw the stool at your closet and that you moved it before officers got there to help Destiny, would that have been a lie?
I don't recall that.
Okay. We will come back to that one as well. We'll find it and come back to it. Do you remember when you went back to the house after you had been interviewed and the officers put the stool there?
From the pictures.
But you don't remember ever going back to your house?
I was not in my right mind, ma'am.
Can we get the...
Don't get stool. Now you're saying you didn't see him get the stool. So there's.
That's in the first interview.
You can make a mistake, but I would think that that wouldn't be, you know, right? Get the stool. Now you're saying you didn't see him get the stool. So there's.
I can make a mistake, correct?
You can make a mistake, but I would think that that wouldn't be, you know, a mistake you make right there, right?
Okay, so again, we'll find the one where I'm talking about where you specifically say that you moved the stool before officers get there. But even watching that, do you recall at any point in time saying that he got the stool and drug it over there?
I assume that's what happened.
Okay, so your testimony here today, under oath, is that you've never said that you saw him with your own eyes get that stool and that you physically moved that stool back before the police got there.
I do not recall that, ma'am.
Okay. Here we go. All right, I'm looking at page 56 here. You wouldn't mind reading those first 4 lines. Or 5, I guess. Did you read them?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so now after reading that, you did in fact tell Investigator Wardlaw that prior to officers arriving on scene the night of September 14th, that you physically moved the stool back to the kitchen, right? Or the living room area, right?
That's what it says, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, in fact, you didn't assume, because here you're saying that you moved it, right?
But that's 2 separate issues. She said she assumed that's how he got to the closet.
You have an objection?
Yes, that she's confusing the issues and confusing the witness.
Well, I don't think she did, but rephrase your question.
Okay. Your testimony here today is that you assumed that Gavin got the stool, correct?
Yes.
But are you saying also that you never physically witnessed the stool in your closet?
I don't recall.
But you've just read what you said the night of the shooting. You've just read that portion of your interview, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I was not in my right mind.
You told Investigator Wardlaw not only did you see the stool in your closet, but that you physically moved it before officers got back, correct?
That's what it says, yes, ma'am.
That's what you said, Miss Howington. Did you not?
I assume so, yes.
And then again, from the clip that we played a minute ago, second interview, you admit even then that you lied. You said that was not true about the stool, correct?
I told you I was not in my right mind, ma'am.
Ma'am, my question to you was, in that clip that we just saw, you admitted that you had lied about the stool.
That's not true. The clip said I can make a mistake, can't I? There's a difference between a mistake and a lie.
She can answer the question.
Did you lie about the stool in your first interview?
I don't recall, ma'am.
So did you move it?
Not that I recall.
I do want to talk about this last statement that you made, not the one today, but the one you made in your second interview, again, where you're saying that
Can we get the time, date, or date on that? There was actually more than 2 minutes.
the 17th? 17th, yes, September 17th, 2019. Do you recall that even after you had maintained for a while that it was Gavin, again, you go back to you and Anton fighting over the gun, right?
I assume so.
Okay. Do you recall saying that or no?
No, ma'am.
You don't recall changing your story once again, even after you had you'd maintained that it had been Gavin. You don't remember saying again that it wasn't Gavin.
No, ma'am.
So we'll play it, but if I was to tell you that this was the very last statement that you gave to police officers before you came in today and testified on the stand, you actually don't blame Gavin in the last one.
Why would I? I do not want him to live with the fact that he shot his sister for the rest of his life.
Ma'am, my question was, again, your last statement to officers was that you and Antoine, who we now know was not even in the home that night, were in a fight when Destiny was shot. Do you remember making that statement?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I wonder if we could have
Was Antoine already there when you got home?
The neighbor said he would be
You know, when I said I want you to tell me stuff that you hadn't told me before,
Yes, he was.
you need to tell me that.
He got out of the car already.
Okay? It's good and cool.
And I asked Destiny what she wanted to eat, and he kept trying to interfere. And so and he don't like her to eat meat. So that was a problem right there. Anything that I do that he can find a problem with, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't want her to eat meat first off, so he started all that shit too. And he just continued to scream and holler and raise his voice. And he went, I thought he was leaving. He went in the living room, so I was like, please leave. But he didn't leave. And I don't know, I felt threatened because I didn't know what the hell he was capable of. I mean, he's beat me to the point where I was unconscious. And I went got the gun, and when I got it, he got it from me.
Where was the gun?
It was in the black bag on the back of the door.
It's in the black bag on the back door, and you got it out.
On the back of my bedroom door, yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So here, again, you've now changed your story yet again and said that Gavin didn't do it, but you've also put the gun in the black bag on the back of your door, right?
There's a nail on the back of the door. But no, I don't recall any of that. That's what you have to understand.
Ms. Howington, is that not you on that video?
Yes.
So you said what you said, right?
Not in my right mind.
Again, the last statement that you gave was that you and Antoine were fighting and that he tried to get the gun from you and it went off, correct?
That's what we heard, ma'am.
Ms. Howington, are you aware that based on your statements that Antoine could have been charged with first-degree murder?
I was trying to protect my son.
Ms.
Antoine
Howington.
has tortured me
Ms.
to the point
Howington.
of putting me in the hospital.
My question to you was,
I'd like to object.
But she needs to answer the question first, and then she can explain.
you do understand that based on your statements, that Antoine could have been arrested that night and charged with first-degree murder, correct?
I was trying to protect my son. The detectives
Ms.
brought
Howington,
Antoine.
I need you to say yes or no to my question first, please.
And you can explain if you feel the need to.
So, again, just a yes or a no. Do you understand that based on your statement to the police on the night that your daughter was shot, that Antoine could have been arrested and charged with first-degree murder?
I guess, yes. Never
get-
thought about it.
You didn't think about that. When you were blaming him for the death of your daughter and he wasn't even there, you just didn't think about that.
The detectives brought him up first.
But you ran with the
I was trying to
story.
protect my son. Antoine did not matter. He tortured me to the point where I was in the hospital. Antoine did not matter at that moment, ma'am.
Okay. So again, I know that you keep saying that the police put Antoine in your mind, but they didn't put all the extra facts in your mind that you made up throughout your interview, did they?
Depends on which facts we're speaking of.
They didn't tell you that you and him got into a tussle in your archway, did they?
No, ma'am.
They didn't say that you and him were in a fight and Gavin grabbed the gun, did they?
No, ma'am.
You were the first one to say that, weren't you?
After they brought him up.
After they brought
Antoine up.
Okay. You were the first one to say Gavin was the shooter, correct? The police didn't do that, did they?
I don't recall.
Okay. They didn't say that Antoine went and got the gun from your closet, did they? You said that, right?
I don't recall that either, ma'am.
Okay, well, if that's what's on your interview, would that be accurate? If you
Yes,
say
ma'am.
that Antoine went and got the gun from your closet, would that be an accurate statement or an inaccurate statement?
I guess accurate.
It would be accurate. Ms. Howington, you've just testified he wasn't there.
So what are we getting at, ma'am?
If you talked about the fact that Antoine, you made up this whole story that Antoine went and got the gun from your closet and all this stuff, but now we know he wasn't even there, was he?
No, he was not there. I was trying to protect my son. You just cannot accept that, ma'am. You cannot accept it.
Do you recall being asked by the investigators why you tampered with evidence?
Can we clear up when that was?
First interview, page 41. In your first interview, do you recall being specifically asked why you would tamper with evidence?
No.
Look there at the bottom, highlighted portion, and then the following one. There, I guess it's right above it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so when asked by Detective Riddle why you would tamper with evidence, you said, I didn't want to get in trouble, correct?
If I get in trouble, I cannot take care of Gavin. He had just done something that was terrible. So he needs his mother.
Ms. Howington, did you say, I didn't want to get in trouble?
Yes.
You did not say that you were trying to protect your son, right?
No, ma'am.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Ms. Good asked you, isn't it true that Mr. Wardlaw told you it's your responsibility as a parent to keep the gun safe? Is that what she said?
Yes, sir.
And where did you keep the gun?
In a black bag in my closet.
Did you think that was keeping the gun safe?
Yes, sir.
And let's clear up something else. She asked you about, did you ever tell them that Gavin got into the top of that closet by wearing your high-heeled shoes?
No.
Did you tell them that you knew he could climb up there because he gets up there because he wears your high-heeled shoes?
No, that wasn't the only place that high heels were.
Had he done that in the past, worn your high-heeled shoes?
Yes.
Were you suggesting to them that he was wearing those on?
Leading again.
Was he wearing high-heeled shoes at any time on September 14th?
No, sir.
She asked you, did you ask Callie if he'd left that loaded, cocked weapon somewhere where the kids could get it? You hear that? Remember
Yes.
that? Did you know that gun was loaded on September 14th?
No.
Did you know it was cocked on September 14th?
No, sir.
They asked you whether or not you admitted to what happened on the 12th with you going out to confront him and taking that gun out there. You recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall also telling the officers that it happened on Friday?
No.
And she asked you about what you were asking. You were asking Callie and Joey to go get that gun from beside the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you did that, right?
Yes.
And in that text to Joey, what did you say?
Gavin shot Destiny.
And that was some minutes after this happened. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then she told you, you had gunshot residue on your dress, right?
Yes.
You've told them today that you were at the door when you saw the flash.
Yes.
When you got to the couch, what was Gavin doing?
He was sitting there crying on his knees and screaming.
Did you do anything with Gavin at that point?
I picked him up.
And I don't know if you were paying attention when the medical examiner was testifying today. Did you hear her say how long Destiny could have lived after suffering that gunshot?
Honestly, no, I didn't want to.
That's all right. But you do know the first officers arrived about 2 minutes after the 911 call. A minute and a half, 2 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
And she spent a lot of time with you on what you said during that last statement on September 17th, right?
Yes.
What were you doing directly before that interview?
I was planning my daughter's funeral.
No further questions, John.
Anything further? You may step down, Ms. Howington. Call your next witness.
Judge of defense for us.